Welcome to The Art of Show, where we feature the people who are creating amazing stories for kids. Join us as we chat with children's book illustrators and authors, storyboardists, animators, and more. Now, their art might be for kids, but aren't we all just kids at heart? Here's your host, Brandon.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Art of Show. Today, I wanted to try something a little bit different. I might be sounding a little bit more echoey if you guys listen to the podcast, or especially if you're watching on YouTube. You notice there's a black background behind me. That's because I've been messing around with a studio space that we've got and getting it set up today. So I thought I'd film the intro in here. So usually I'm in my office, but today I've got lights and all kinds of crazy stuff hanging out. So let's dive into the podcast and the interview that we've got So let's dive into the interview that we got for you guys this week. We're hanging out with Shawna. Shawna is the host of Stories Unbound, which is actually part of the Oatly Academy. Stories Unbound is a free podcast where they really dive into kid lit. She actually had a great interview come out a couple weeks ago with agents, and they take you through the entire process. And so we get into some of the lessons she's learned being an illustrator herself from all these amazing folks she's had on the podcast. She talks through her journey from going from aspiring artist and going through classes in the Oatly Academy to actually having published books out, and we get into some of her books. In addition to what it's just like to be a freelance artist, and as well as to put out a podcast. So it's kind of fun because we got to talk shop a little bit since I'm doing this with you guys, getting to put this podcast out each week, but she does an incredible job. So make sure and check out her podcast, if nothing else, and also be sure and check out her book. So without further ado, let's dive into the interview with Shawna. All right, well, we want to welcome Shawna to The Art of Show, hanging out with us. Professional podcaster. She's got a pretty cool setup over there. So welcome. Thanks for hanging out with us on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Well, good stuff.
It's fun to be in the interview seat instead of being the interviewee.
Yeah, you're like, you don't have to look at notes, so like you don't have to worry about what the next question is, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Let's go. Well, yeah. So I came across your stuff with the Stories Unbound podcast over with the Oatly Academy. How did you get involved with all of that? Did you go through some classes on their end, or kind of how did that relationship start?
Yeah, I think it was, oh gosh, when was it? Like back in 2012, when Chris started his school, the Oatly Academy, I was in his very first painting drama class.
Okay, cool.
And so it's kind of his intense course on composition. So yeah, I was in that class, and I guess we just became friends over time, and he knew that I was into the kidlit scene, and he knew that his school was he knew that there was a lot of people that were in children's publishing and were interested in that kind of stuff, and they were kind of being underserved in that area. So he wanted to do a podcast on kidlit, and so he asked me, and I was kind of terrified at first because I didn't think I'd be good at that kind of stuff, but it took a couple of years, and we finally launched it, and it's been really fun.
Yeah. When did you guys first start it?
December 2015.
Okay. So about a year, I guess 2 years now. Is that right? Or
a little over a year.
Over a year. Okay.
Yeah.
That's real cool. So to kind of back up on your story, were your parents creative? Was art and drawing, illustrations, was that something you always did, or did you kind of come into it later in life?
That was something I always did. My parents they're not really artistic in visual arts, but they've always been into music and just the arts in general. Growing up, my parents we were part of the Symphony Youth Guild in Salt Lake, and we'd always go to the symphony, and I was in ballet. It was just, we just loved the arts and stuff. But I was the only one in my family who really took on visual arts. I had a great grandma that I didn't know, but that was an artist, and I admired her, but there wasn't really any other visual artists in my family.
Yeah. Did you have a moment growing up where folks either said like, you're pretty good at this? Like, was there a point where you're like, I think I could like do this as a career, or was it just kind of something that happened, kind of fell into it?
Yeah, I was always encouraged since I was little, because I think it was just something, even from a very, very young age, it was just something that I always did just to all the time. And I guess I practiced it so much that I got pretty good at it. And I was always encouraged by teachers. I had one particular, I remember in first grade, I had a first grade teacher who was really encouraging to me, who we were doing a Christmas program, and she had me draw a huge, like on big, huge paper, a big, huge nativity scene. And it just made me feel really like I was an artist because she let me do that. Yeah. So it was great to have encouraging people around me.
What were kids' books? Were they always a part of your life too, growing up? Like, were you drawn to them?
Yeah, I was always drawn to him. My mom was always reading. We like every night before we went to bed, she would read us picture books. She was always taking us to the library, and I guess I didn't realize it was such a part of my life until later, but it really was like. And I was really drawn to the fairy tale books,
Okay.
but those were the ones that I was always check out, but the picture books were always kind of part of my life, and I guess I didn't even realize it.
Yeah. Did you have any favorites?
Yeah. The favorite ones that I always got every time we went to the library was Beauty and the Beast and Sleeping Beauty.
Okay.
By illustrated by Mercer Mayer.
Yeah.
They're and I just actually this last month I got them off of Amazon.
Okay.
I got them like used from the library. They're probably out of print now, but it was fun to go back and yeah, I totally, like when you see something from when you were a kid, it's just when you see it again, it's like, this is like the memory is so vivid.
Yeah. What was
you
it?
Just remember all the little details.
Yeah. What was it about Mercer's work that drew you to it, looking back on it?
I guess it was, well, I loved fairy tales.
Okay.
Fairy tales were a big part of my life. We used to have these old, radio shows that had been recorded off of records.
Yeah.
Called Let's Pretend, that we always listened to. And, so I guess that's part of why I really, really loved fairy tales. I was always listening to those. And, but so for one reason it was because they were fairy tales, but the second was, I guess I just love like the gracefulness of the illustrations. They're just, I don't know. Like I mentioned, I loved all the arts, and, I was in ballet, and I guess that affects my art too.
Yeah.
Just the flowy lines and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you're doing tons of art in school, and then did you go to Brigham Young? Did I see that?
Yeah. I went to BYU.
And was that for an art degree?
Yeah, I got a bachelor's degree in illustration there.
Gotcha. What was that college experience like? Because I know some people like they love it. Some people are like, I'd never want to do this again. What was that like for you?
It was really good. At the time, there was really good teachers there. I learned a lot. I didn't learn as much about the children's illustration side of it, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. It was kind of like we learned all different aspects of all different kind of illustration, which was good. I learned about editorial and all that stuff. And it was kind of in that, the early 2000s when it was kind of that transition stage.
Yeah.
The illustration world was really transitioning at that time, I think. So, but it was I got really good fundamentals there. I learned I painted all in acrylics. I was
Okay.
afraid of the computer.
Yeah.
Um, and now I paint all digitally, but yeah, back then I think that was a good foundation to have the traditional mediums and
Gotcha.
stuff.
So when you left college, did you just go straight into doing illustration, whether it's freelance, or what was your kind of next step after college?
Um, my very next step after college, I graduated when I was 7 months pregnant with my first
Oh, wow.
daughter.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so,
You had a big next step
my
after
first
college.
step was, being a mom. And
Yeah.
then about a year later, when she was about 5 months old, my husband was going to school then.
Okay.
So I had to go and find a job because we need more support. And so I got a part-time job at Joann, the fabric store,
Yeah.
working in their frame shop.
Okay, cool.
And after a while, I was just like, why am I working here when I could just be at home with my daughter drawing
Yeah.
and doing stuff with my degree that I got?
Yeah.
So that's when I started really sending my stuff out. Sent myself out to art reps, I think mostly, and a couple other publishers and stuff. And that's kind of how it was about a year after I graduated that I started getting work. I got an art rep and started getting smaller educational work for hire jobs, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. What was that experience like, kind of getting back into that world after being out of it for a little bit?
It was the time when I was not in it. It was like I was just missing part of my life that I needed.
Yeah.
Like it's a part of my life that I need art to sit down, relax, and express myself. So it was good to get back into it because it was just something that I needed in my life.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I was reading, but I saw that you do classes just like with your kids and like kids in the community, like drawing classes and stuff for fun. What's it like being a mom and like sharing like that creativity like with your kids?
Yeah. Well, I don't actually do classes anymore.
Okay.
I did them a few years ago, but that was really fun. I love being able to share that with my kids. My kids like to like a couple of years ago, I was working on a book, and my daughter, both of my daughters really love to draw, but my one daughter, she was like designing characters for my book and drawing costumes and
That's cool.
just really getting into wanting to help me with my story and my book. I love like taking them out, like when we go to the bird zoo or something and going and drawing with them. I think I just like being able to include them in that and sharing that experience together.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
For sure.
So you were doing, it sounds like a lot of kind of editorial or work for educational magazines and that kind of stuff with your art rep. How did you get into the picture book world? Was that something, 'cause you mentioned like that was something you kind of wanted to go towards, but was there like a point where you're like, all right, I really want to go after this?
Yeah. Mostly all my work was in children's literature, like,
Okay.
but a lot of it was for school, or like there was a few like little religious books or for religious magazines and that kind of stuff. And I guess I always just expected to go right into picture books. But for the longest time, I was just getting those smaller work for hire jobs, and It's not where I wanted to be. I just always wanted to be in the picture books. And I did illustrate a few. Well, there was one self-published book that I did that was a picture book, and but it wasn't until I just decided that I needed to write my own stories because I was tired of other people's stories.
Yeah.
I could tell you my nightmare job where I actually got an editor fired because I pointed out so many mistakes that were in a manuscript.
Oh man.
I was like, I can't illustrate this.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing for my work to be shown with this, but so anyway, I was just tired of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to really work hard on learning how to write my own picture books because I need to stop illustrating these books. So it was about 2013 when I started writing my book, Brunhilda's Backwards Day. And then I just worked really hard on it, and it was picked up at the end about 2014.
Okay.
So, and then published in 2016. And so now I feel like I'm more on that track going towards writing and illustrating my own books. And that's where I want to be. So
what was it like when you found out the book was picked up? Was it like a phone call that your agent called you? Like walk us through what that was kind of like.
I can't really remember, but I think it was just through email that she told me that the publisher was interested, and it was a smaller publisher, so I didn't know if I wanted to go with it.
Okay,
but I was like, yes, I do, because it's it's the opportunity for my first book to get published.
Yeah.
And it's been a good experience.
What was it like what was it like to get that book? Like your first, whether they're advanced copies or like your first, like the actual like product that you've been working on for so long.
This is funny. So, it was supposed to come out on August 6th.
Okay.
I think it was August 6th, no, 2nd.
Okay.
And, so I'm waiting for my copies to come. Since it was a small publisher, they didn't send me advanced copies.
Oh,
they
no.
didn't
Okay. Gotcha.
They didn't send me like the what do they call it, folded and gathered, or I don't know, where you can see how it's printed and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
So, and all of a sudden Amazon like started sending out the orders that had been pre-ordered. So all of a sudden my friends are getting my book and I'm sitting here like, oh my gosh, I want to see it so bad.
Yeah.
And finally my friend that lives pretty close to me, she got her book and she's like, do you want to come see your book? And I was like, can I please? So I came over to her house and I was just like, I just opened the book. I just saw the book and I'm like, oh, let me show you real quick.
Okay.
So it has, I don't know if you've seen this, but it has a shiny cover.
Oh, cool.
And I wasn't expecting that. I hadn't seen that. And so I look at it, I'm like, whoa, like I was not expecting this. And then I just sat down on her couch and I was just so happy. I just wanted to cry because this book I had worked harder on than any other book that I'd had. I wanted to look better than anything I'd made. And I really, really took the time to do that. And so I was just sitting there and I was just so happy and I just wanted to cry and she's just sitting there with me. And I was like, oh, it was just like a really exciting moment. And then she let me have her book. And she said, because I was expecting my copies to come in pretty soon. And so when I got my copies, I was able to give her one of those. And it was an exciting moment.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Do you read your book to your kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're older now, but they've, I read it a few times to them when I first got it. And then they've also come with me to, I had a couple launch parties and book readings and stuff. So they've come to those with me, and it's been fun.
That's cool. That's really cool. So was it painting with drama? Is that the class you did with?
Painting drama. Yeah.
Painting drama. Okay. When was that? Did you go through that class before you started work on your book?
Yeah. And it was actually played a big role in helping me get there, because I was with my first art rep, and I was getting those jobs that I didn't like, and I was trying to figure out how I could get into picture books and how I could get better work that I liked, because I was at a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's not fun. So I actually told my art agent that I was taking sort of a sabbatical.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to take any jobs for a little while. I was going to take some classes and that kind of stuff. And that's when Chris's class came up, and I was just like, okay, this is the perfect timing for me to, get some, maybe this will help me get some better portfolio pieces, stuff like that. So that's kind of why I went to that first class that he offered.
What was that experience like?
It was a really great experience, because it was Chris's very first class, and so we were a smaller group, and we got a lot of one-on-one attention from him. It's back when he was actually working for Disney, and while we were in the class is when he quit his job at Disney.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we got a lot of one-on-one attention from him, and just grew really close as a group, and we all really inspired each other. And I think that we all grew a lot artistically during that time.
That's cool.
That was good.
Cool. So with Stories Unbound, you've got to chat with lots of fun people who are doing really cool things. How is that? What's that been like for you, since you're also an illustrator and author, to be able to talk to those folks? Like, are there like lessons you've learned, or just things you're like, oh, this is really cool?
Yeah, they've all been really inspiring to me, and I know that I've learned a lot of stuff. I need to go back and listen to them actually, but it's also been cool to talk with like industry professionals. Like I just talked recently with an agent, and next month we're having one from an editor at Scholastic, and it's just been fun to connect more with these people from the industry.
Yeah.
An art director. I don't know. It's I'm sure you do the same thing. Like you just feel like more connected with the art community. And, learn some great social media tips from Jake Parker. He's good at that.
Yeah, Jake's great. He's super good at it.
Yeah, just little things here and there that have helped inspire me and helped move me forward for sure.
Do you have any favorite moments from interviews when you kind of think through who you've talked with that stand out? I love talking with Molly Idle, because she's just so fun and positive. Yeah.
I guess I'm really inspired by her, because I want to be someday where she is, where she can fully help. She has a full career, and then just talking with Noah Klochek, and I think it was a bunch of a few of them that it took them a really long time to get their first book. Like
yeah.
So many drafts of the dummy book, and it was just hard to get there. It's good to see like their struggles. Like they didn't just make it,
Yeah.
So it's good to see the story behind their stories.
Yeah, that's cool.
For sure.
I think it was that Noah interview. I remember listening to it, and I was like, man, I want to talk to this guy. And I was like,
Yeah.
maybe I should start a podcast to talk to him. And he was super, it was cool talking to him because he's like in Pixar and there's like a Buzz Lightyear like on his table behind him. And he's talking about these pastels he can do in like 2 minutes. It would take me like 3 years. And it was it was a fun interview.
His pastels are amazing. I love seeing those.
Yeah, he was so artsy, like in a good way. I'm like, you're a for real artist, is what you're talking about. So, that's cool. So you mentioned that you're kind of wanting to move towards how Molly Idle is now, where you're able to kind of support yourself off your books. What do you have coming next? Are the projects that you can talk about, or are the things that you're coming that you're excited about?
It's been kind of weird. Like, this whole year, excuse me, I have not gotten a lot of freelance work, which I always have in the past, but I think it's kind of also been good in a way because I've been able to work more on my personal stories. I had a book that I've actually been working on for a really long time called The Queen of Sheepaw's Royal Birthday.
Okay.
And it took me about 2 years to get this story right. And finally, I have a dummy book ready. And then I also am working on another story it's a pirate story.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm working on these 2 picture books and I'm trying to get them ready. And I think I'm about ready to start looking for new literary agents.
Gotcha.
So
when you're working on those stories, is it the narrative that you're working on? Is it the character designs, or is it a little bit of all of it? Like kind of what's your
bit of all of it.
Okay, so kind of where do your, I guess, ideas come from? Like, do you just have like a list of like, oh, these would be a really cool ideas, and then you just start working on the story? Like, what's your kind of process like?
Ideas, a lot of them have come from Peebo Idmo. No, it's called Story Storm now.
Yeah.
With Tara Lazar. I don't know how to say her name, but so I have done that about 3 or 4 times.
And is that
so
where
I kind of have a bank of
you come
ideas.
up with a new, for folks that may not know, is that where you come up with a new idea each day over the month of is it October or November?
It used to be November, but just this year in 2017 it changed to January, and
okay.
It's called Story Storm now.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, so it's 30 ideas in a month.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's intense, but it's been really good.
Yeah.
The Queen of Sheepaw's Royal Birthday actually came from my daughter, so because she was so impatient for her birthday, and that's kind of where that story came from. The ideas come from everywhere, but then I usually write the story.
Okay.
And try to revise it pretty well before I start on my storyboard and stuff, because I had a lot of problems with like the Queen of Sheepaw, where I had to rewrite my story so many times, and then I had to do the whole storyboard, and I did the dummy book twice, and so I usually try and get the story pretty well. But there's things when you start drawing the storyboard that you realize that you need to change in the story.
Yeah.
So it's kind of always a back and forth process.
Gotcha.
That's sure.
Cool. Well, sweet. So a couple questions we love to ask as we're kind of wrapping up. And you mentioned some already, but are there current authors or illustrators whose work you just love? Some of your favorites? Maybe there's the ones that you read to your kids, or the stuff you like now.
Yeah. There's so many good ones. I have a favorite picture book, and I can't even think of who the illustrator is. That sounds so bad.
No, that's fine.
I love, I guess because I was just thinking about her, I love Molly Idle stuff. But I love the stuff that John Clausen and Peter Brown are doing, and Dan Santat, but those guys are like I should have thought this through before, but there's a lot of people that I'm really inspired by, who are both authors and illustrators.
Okay, cool.
I think that those books really resonate with me just because that's kind of the way I think as an author and illustrator, just showing a lot in the pictures and then a good balance between pictures and words.
Gotcha.
I think.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Do you have a dream project? Is there just, because some folks I've talked with, they're like, I really want to work with this person, or like, there's this thing I really want to create. Is there something out there for you? They're like, this would be amazing if I could work on this.
I think just working with bigger publishers would be cool because I haven't had the chance to do that yet.
Yeah.
I've worked more with small publishers. And just, I think just always being able to sustain myself on just writing and illustrating my own books. Like right now I'm trying to bring in a lot of freelance too to kind of help support myself. But I think if I got to the point where it was just writing and illustrating my own books, I think that would be my big dream.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, sweet. Well, for folks that want to keep up with you and what you're doing, whether it's over the Stories Unbound or your personal stuff, any good places to send people?
Yeah, my personal website is ShawnaJCTenney.com. And you can find me on all the social media. Mostly my handle is usually at Shawna JC Tenney.
Okay.
And then if you want to find my podcast, you can find it at storiesunboundshow.com. And I think that's it. Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for taking some time with me. I hope you liked having the questions flipped around on you. So
yeah,
it was just fun. just to chat. It's cool just to see what you're doing for the Kidlit community, but just to see that you're going after it too, going after your dreams, which is so much fun. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. You too.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.